The countdown was still ticking. 4 minutes. Ray's eyes darted to the console. The screen was flashing red now, warning lights blaring. The whole place was coming apart. There wasn't much time left, and the dragon was still out there, probably more enraged than ever. He staggered to his feet, his legs shaking from the blast and exhaustion. The walls groaned around him as the facility began to collapse. Pieces of the ceiling cracked and fell to the ground, the walls shaking under the force of the explosions. Ray glanced back at the terminal. The self-destruct countdown hadn't stopped. It was getting closer. 3 minutes. Ray grabbed his gun and knife, his thoughts racing. There was one way out, through the central core. It was the only path left that led to an exit, but the dragon was in the way. If he didn't act fast, the monster would kill him before he had a chance to make it out. Ray's fingers twitched with the urgency of the situation. He had no choice but to face the dragon. There were no drones left to fight the creature, and the defense grid was falling apart. The only weapon left was the one thing he had on hand, the old battered knife that he barely used before. But he wasn't foolish. He knew it wouldn't be enough. He glanced around the room and saw a hatch in the floor leading down. It could be a way out, or it could lead him deeper into the facility. Ray hesitated. Then the ground trembled again, and the sound of the dragon's roar cut through the noise of collapsing walls. It was close. Ray made his decision. He needed to try. With his knife drawn, he sprinted toward the hatch, hoping that whatever lay beneath would offer a way to escape. He wrenched open the door and climbed down into the dark shaft. The walls around him were slick with moisture, and the air was thick with dust. His steps echoed as he descended, but then he heard it. Footsteps. Heavy, like thunder. The dragon was here. Ray's heart skipped a beat, and his pulse raced even faster. He could hear the beast above him, its massive claws scraping against the metal, its breathing deep and erratic. The roar of the dragon reverberated through the shaft, and Ray knew that it was coming down after him. 2 minutes. He reached the bottom of the shaft and found himself in a large, dimly lit room. It was filled with strange equipment, more alien technology. Screens flickered on the walls, showing data Ray couldn't read. But there was something more important. A large, glowing door in the back of the room, a passage, an escape route. Ray didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward it, feeling the heat of the dragon's breath close behind him. He reached for the door's control panel, slamming his hand against it. The door opened with a hiss, revealing a tunnel that seemed to stretch on forever. Ray rushed inside, but as soon as he took his first step, the walls began to shake once more. The dragon was close. He didn't stop. He ran through the tunnel, the ground shaking with every step the creature took above him. But then something strange happened. The wall started to close in. The path ahead became narrower. The tunnel was collapsing. Ray cursed under his breath, his mind racing. The only way out was through the control room, and it was up ahead. If he could just get to the main terminal, maybe he could shut down the facility's core before it detonated. But would he make it in time? Suddenly, the dragon's roar shook the walls again. Ray glanced back and saw the beast descending through the hole in the ceiling. Its enormous form filled the space above him, blocking the light. Ray pushed forward, determination coursing through his veins. He reached the control room's entrance and slid through the doorway, barely avoiding the falling debris. The room was filled with monitors, all showing the same countdown. 1 minute. Ray's hands flew over the keyboard, desperate to input commands. He needed to disable the self-destruct, or all of this would be for nothing. His fingers moved faster, sweat pouring down his face as he typed in the override code. But the computer screen kept flashing red. The code was wrong. The system had locked him out. 50 seconds. Ray's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. He was running out of time. The dragon let out another roar, and Ray knew it was coming for him. He had no choice. If he didn't act now, everything would be destroyed. In a last-ditch effort, he slammed his fist against the terminal. And then, the screen went green. The countdown stopped. Ray took a deep breath as the facility's alarms faded. It worked. The self-destruct was disabled. For now. But as Ray turned to face the door, he heard the dragon's roar again. It was close. Too close. Ray glanced at the console once more, then back at the door. There was no more running. The final stand had begun. The dragon's eyes burned like fire. Its head filled the entrance of the cave. Long horns curved back, and smoke rose from its wide mouth. Ray Carter froze behind the rock, holding his small laser pistol tight, though he knew it was no match for this beast. The dragon sniffed the air again. A deep growl rumbled in its throat. It knew something was here, something alive. Ray's mind raced. He had to stay quiet. He had to think fast. The cave was dark, but the creature could see in the dark. Its glowing eyes moved slowly, scanning the inside. Each step the beast took shook the ground. Its claws scratched the stone, echoing like metal. Ray moved slowly behind a larger boulder deeper in the cave. His heart pounded so loud he feared the creature could hear it. Sweat ran down his face. His hand shook as he reached into his bag. He pulled out a flare. A flare. It might blind the beast, or distract it. He waited for the dragon to step closer. It did. Now, only 10 feet away. Its hot breath filled the air. Ray held the flare tight. Then, he struck it. SSSSHHHH. The red light burst in the dark cave, filling it with fire-like brightness. The dragon roared, pulling its head back. Its eyes shut tight. The cave shook as it reared up in anger. Ray didn't waste time. He ran. Through a side tunnel he had noticed earlier, he sprinted into the narrow path. The dragon tried to follow, but its huge body got stuck in the small opening. It roared again, louder this time, and fire blasted from its mouth. The flames chased Ray, burning the walls behind him. He rolled forward, barely escaping the heat. Smoke followed him as he reached the end of the tunnel. There he found a small chamber, filled with strange glowing stones and machines. Old machines, rusted, broken, but not human. Ray looked around, confused. This wasn't just a cave, it was a lair. And not just any lair. It had tech. Advanced tech. Who built this, and why was a dragon guarding it? He approached a half-buried control panel. A broken screen blinked with a weak light. Somehow, it still had power. He tapped it. A message appeared. Warning. Weapon containment BREACHD. Ray stepped back. Weapon? Was the dragon the weapon? Before he could think more, he heard a sound. Metal dragging across stone. The dragon had found another way in. Ray turned. A tunnel behind him lit up with orange light. The beast was coming. He grabbed a metal rod from the floor and used it to block part of the tunnel. Then he placed a broken energy cell near the wall. One last trick. As the dragon entered, Ray threw a rock at the energy cell. Boom! The explosion shook the chamber. Dust and smoke filled the air. Ray ran again, coughing, blinded by the blast. Behind him, the dragon roared, hurt but still alive. He crawled through another hole in the wall, entering a narrow crack in the rocks. The space was tight, but he made it through. On the other side, he found a ledge high above the valley. Ray fell to his knees, breathing hard. Below him, he saw the crashed ship. Smoke still rose from it. He was far from safety. The dragon was not dead. And now, it was angry. Ray looked back at the cave. The creature didn't chase him this time, but he could still hear it, growling in the dark. This wasn't just a beast. It was something worse. It was smart. It was waiting. Ray sat down and opened his emergency pack again. 1 water pouch left, 2 ration bars, a knife. No working weapons. But he had learned something. The dragon was guarding something. Something powerful. And now it knew Ray was after it. Night was falling fast. Two moons rose in the alien sky. The wind howled like voices from the past. Ray stared into the darkness, knowing the creature was still in there, watching. This was no longer about escape. It was a battle between man and monster. And only one would survive. Above the dragon pit, the alien crowd was getting restless. Minutes had passed, but there were no screams, no blood, no smoke. A Valith officer raised a scanner. Life forms still detected, but not dead. The cheering stopped. "Open the observation drones," the general growled. "Let's see what's taking so long." Deep below, Sergeant Leo Kane sat firmly on Drakkar's back, gripping a handle behind the dragon's head. The air around them buzzed with danger. Alarms flashed. Doors locked. The entire base knew something was wrong. Leo looked at Drakkar. "We need a way out. Fast." "There is one path," Drakkar rumbled, "but it is dangerous." Leo gave a small smile. "Everything's dangerous today." Drakkar began to move, fast and low, his massive body gliding through the metal corridors like a shadow. His claws clanked on the floor, echoing across the forgotten lab. They passed another control room. Leo spotted screens showing different sections of the facility. Some areas were broken, filled with smoke. Others had motion sensors going wild. He tapped the screen. "They've activated security bots." As if on cue, red lights turned on behind them. A whirring noise followed. Then came the sound of metal feet running. Leo spun around. "We've got company." Down the hallway, a dozen Valith battle droids appeared. Tall, silver machines with glowing green eyes and plasma rifles built into their arms. "Go," Leo shouted. Drakkar roared and ran. The droids opened fire. Blasts of green energy flew past them, burning holes in the walls. One beam grazed Drakkar's wing. The beast grunted, but kept moving. Leo aimed his wrist device at a side panel and pressed a button. A wall of flame burst from the side pipes, cutting off the droids. Smoke filled the hallway. The dragon leaped over fallen crates and slid through a wide metal door just as it sealed shut behind them. They were in a large chamber now, round and echoing. A broken bridge hung above a pool of blue energy. Old Earth tech hummed in the background. Drakkar stopped for a moment. "This is the old launch bay. There may still be a way to the surface." Leo jumped down and checked a control panel. Dust covered it, but the screen flickered to life. "Escape pod. Status 54% functional." "Good enough," Leo muttered. But before they could move, the far wall exploded. A new enemy entered. Tall, covered in armor. A Valith war beast, part machine, part alien. Its arms were massive cannons, its face covered in a breathing mask. "You should be dead," it growled. "But you broke the game. Now, you burn." Leo raised his hands, but the war beast fired. The blast hit the ground where Leo stood, sending him flying into a metal wall. Drakkar roared and charged, claws out, tail whipping. The two giants crashed. Steel hit scale. Sparks flew. The war beast slammed Drakkar into the wall, leaving a dent. But Drakkar bit down on its shoulder and threw it across the room. Leo crawled up, coughing, blood on his lip. "Drakkar." "I'm fine," the dragon growled. The war beast stood again. "You are no king. You are a failed pet." Drakkar's eyes glowed brighter. "Then fear the pet who remembers fire." The dragon inhaled and let out a massive burst of blue flame. The war beast screamed as its armor melted. It stumbled back, but didn't fall. Leo looked at the control panel. "I can't open the escape pod unless we overload the energy core." Drakkar limped back. "Then do it. I will hold him." "No," Leo said. "We do this together." He ran to the panel and began pressing buttons. Warnings flashed. "Overload in 30 seconds." Behind him, Drakkar and the war beast clashed again. The room shook. Pipes burst. The energy pool began to boil. Finally, the escape pod door creaked open. "Now!" Leo shouted. Drakkar swung his tail, knocking the war beast off its feet. It crashed into a support pillar, bringing part of the ceiling down. Leo ran to the pod and climbed inside. Drakkar followed, just barely fitting. The door sealed. The pod hummed. Lights turned green. Launching in 5, 4, 3. Outside, the war beast roared one last time, then disappeared in a wall of exploding fire. The escape pod blasted upward, through old launch tubes and rocky ground. Faster, higher. Then suddenly, sky, stars, freedom. Leo gasped. They had made it. Drakkar let out a low rumble. The surface. Leo looked down at the glowing planet far below. Now we show them. But their freedom was short. Ahead, Valith patrol ships were already waiting. "Enemy craft locked on," said the pod system. Leo tightened his grip. "Let them come." Beside him, the dragon smiled. They weren't running anymore. They were bringing the fight. Ray stood in the cave entrance, staring into the dark forest where the dragon had vanished. His hands trembled, but not from fear. He was angry now, determined. The drone hummed quietly above him, its signal booster flashing green. It was sending a message, a call to Earth. But would it reach in time? The dragon was close. He could hear its heavy steps, feel the Earth shaking with each movement. Ray knew the creature was smarter than it seemed. It wasn't just a beast. He was beginning to realize that. This was something far more dangerous. A weapon. A creation. And it was protecting something much bigger than a simple lair. The project. Project Skyfire. Ray whispered the words to himself again, the truth sinking deeper into his mind. Earth was here. Earth had been here before. But why? What had they been testing? And why did they leave behind such a deadly guardian? The dragon roared again, cutting through his thoughts. It was closer. Ray took a deep breath, gripping his knife tighter, eyes scanning the forest. He had one chance to survive. The dragon couldn't be allowed to destroy the drone. If Earth got that signal, they'd know he was alive. They'd come. But first, he had to face the monster. He stepped into the dark forest, moving fast, low to the ground. His eyes constantly darted to the shadows, looking for any sign of the beast. Then, a crash. He spun around, spotting the dragon's massive shape in the distance, its glowing eyes fixed on him. Its wings flapped once, sending gusts of wind that nearly knocked Ray off his feet. Too late, it had found him. The dragon let out a deafening roar and charged, its claws scraping the ground, its huge form moving faster than Ray could have imagined. The ground shook violently with each step. Ray didn't have time to think. He dove behind a fallen tree, narrowly avoiding a burst of fire that singed the bark where he had been standing moments before. He pressed his back to the cold earth, breathing hard. His heart pounded, but he didn't let fear take over. He couldn't. Ray peered over the tree trunk. The dragon was circling, its golden eyes scanning the area, looking for him. It was smarter than he thought. It wasn't charging blindly anymore. It was playing with him, toying with him. Ray gripped his knife, and for the first time since his crash, he allowed himself to smile. It wasn't the dragon that would decide the outcome of this fight. It was him. He had a plan. Quickly, he crawled behind the trees, moving as quietly as possible. The dragon roared again, but it was further away now, just enough for Ray to make his move. He ran low and fast, heading toward the glowing tower in the distance. The dragon's eyes followed his movements, but it didn't chase. Not yet. Ray didn't stop. The tower was closer now. He reached the base and ducked inside the narrow opening, finding shelter behind the stone walls. The air inside was cool, and the buzzing of strange machinery filled the space. He pressed himself against the cold surface, trying to steady his breathing. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed outside. The dragon had landed. It was coming. Ray ran further into the structure. The walls here were lined with strange symbols, alien technology, the same technology that had been in the cave. This was a research facility, an outpost, an experiment. He pushed forward, his feet slipping on the smooth metal floor. Ahead of him, there was a large chamber, its door slightly ajar. The space inside hummed with energy. The faint smell of something electrical filled the air. And then, he saw it. A huge round chamber, filled with liquid. Inside, suspended in the fluid, was a creature. A dragon, but not like the one hunting him. This one was different. It had scales that shimmered in shades of blue, purple, and silver. Its eyes were closed, but Ray could see the power it held, even in its unconscious state. This wasn't just a dragon. This was something engineered. In a far corner of the galaxy, where suns burned blue and planets floated like forgotten islands, the Valith Empire ruled with fear. They were cold, cruel, and proud. Their favorite form of punishment, the Dragon Pit. Every month, crowds filled the arena on planet Vrax. They came to watch the sacrifice. Victims, usually rebels, spies, or prisoners of war, were thrown into a dark pit. No one ever returned. All that came back was silence, or the sound of screaming. It was a show, a warning, a message to all who dared to resist the Valith. This time, the sacrifice was different. The prisoner was a human. He stood tall, even though his hands were tied, and his uniform was torn. His name was Sergeant Leo Kane, a soldier from Earth. His face was bruised. His body was thin. But his eyes, they were still sharp. The alien crowd laughed. Humans, one Valith general whispered. So weak, so emotional. They cry too much, another said. Leo didn't speak. He didn't beg. He just looked up at the sky, where stars blinked like tiny hopes. Somewhere out there, Earth still lived. Maybe watching, maybe not. A loud drum echoed through the arena. It was time. The guards pushed Leo forward. The pit stood wide and black before him, like a mouth ready to eat. Thick smoke rose from its depths. The smell of burned metal and bones filled the air. The announcer shouted in the Valith tongue, "Let the galaxy witness. The human shall feed the beast." Then, with one last shove, Leo fell. The crowd cheered. Down he dropped, faster and faster. His body turned, spun. Darkness swallowed him. The sound of the crowd faded. For a moment, there was only wind. Then, a growl. It was deep, loud. It shook the walls of the pit. It wasn't like any sound Leo had ever heard. It wasn't just anger. It was hunger. Leo hit the ground hard. Pain shot through his legs and arms. He gasped, but he didn't die. Not yet. He opened his eyes slowly. The pit was darker than night. The only light came from glowing red lines on the walls. Strange markings. Alien tech. Bones lay everywhere. Some small, some huge. Leo touched his side. His ribs hurt, maybe cracked, but he could still move. He sat up. Then he heard it again. The growl. Closer now. From the shadows, something moved. Huge footsteps. Heavy breath. Leo backed up, crawling with his hands still tied. Then it appeared. The dragon. It was massive. Black and silver scales. Eyes that glowed gold. Smoke rose from its mouth, and its wings dragged behind it like torn sails. Leo stared, frozen. This was it. This was how he would die. The beast stepped closer. It growled again, but this time, slower, not angry, curious. Leo closed his eyes. He waited for the bite, the flame, the end. But nothing happened. He opened his eyes. The dragon was staring at him. Its eyes looked deep into his. It tilted its head, sniffed. Then, it bowed. Leo blinked. Did he see it right? The monster, the killer of thousands, had lowered its head. Not to eat, not to strike, but in respect. He didn't understand. Why? Why him? The dragon stepped back. It used one claw to tap a nearby wall. A hidden panel opened. A beam of light shot out and scanned Leo's face. Then a voice echoed through the pit. Robotic. Old. Human. DNA match confirmed. Project Dragonmint. Reactivated. Leo's heart raced. Project Dragonmint. That was Earth's secret program, abandoned years ago. A project where humans trained to connect with beasts, not control them by force, but through emotion. The dragon growled again, but this time it sounded like a word. You, the beast said, slowly, you are not like the others. Leo stood up, shaking. His legs hurt, his head spun, but he faced the dragon now, no fear in his eyes. I'm Leo Kane, Sergeant of Earth Command. The dragon growled once more, and then did something no one expected. It smiled. Above, the Valith crowd waited for screams, for blood, but there was nothing, only silence. Then a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. The dragon pit was waking up. And deep below the Empire, something new, something dangerous, had just begun. Sergeant Leo Kane stood in the middle of the dragon pit, still breathing, still alive. The dragon, massive, sharp, terrifying, was standing beside him. But it didn't attack. It didn't roar. It stood calm, almost like a guard. The glow from the wall panel faded. The voice from earlier, the one that said Project Dragonmind, was gone. Silence returned. Leo looked around. The pit wasn't just a hole in the ground. Now that his eyes adjusted to the dark, he could see more. Metal. Wires. Lights. This place was not a prison. It was a forgotten lab. He moved slowly, limping with every step. His ribs still hurt from the fall. The dragon followed, its heavy body making the ground shake, but its eyes stayed soft. Can you understand me? Leo asked. The dragon blinked once, then gave a low rumble. Not a full answer, but it was listening. Leo reached a large wall panel, dusty, cracked, but still humming with power. He wiped the surface with his sleeve. A symbol appeared. The flag of Earth. His heart jumped. Earth was here, he whispered. This was built by humans. Next to the flag, another panel lit up and opened. Inside, there was a metal case. He pulled it out slowly. It clicked open, revealing a small device, like a wristband with wires and sensors. The dragon stepped closer, watching carefully. Leo hesitated, then slid the band onto his wrist. It buzzed. The screen blinked. A soft voice spoke. Neuralink. Connected. Emotion bridge. Stable. Dragon mind status. Active. Leo's breath caught in his chest. It was true. He was inside an old Earth experiment, Project Dragonmind. Years ago, Earth had tried to bond humans with alien beasts, using emotion and brainwaves instead of chains. But the project failed, or so they thought. This place was proof it never ended. The dragon looked at him again. You feel, it said slowly. The voice was deep, rough, like a rock grinding against metal. Leo stared. You can speak. I remember, before the silence. The dragon growled. I was born for war, trained to obey. But they stopped coming. Left us here, alone. You were made by Earth. Leo asked. The dragon nodded. They called me Drakkar. I was weapon. But you are not like the others. Leo stepped forward. I'm not here to control you. I'm here because they threw me away. Drakkar's eyes narrowed. Then maybe we are the same. In the far corner of the pit, a broken door slowly opened with a hiss. A hallway stretched into the darkness, lined with red lights. Come, Drakkar said. There is more. Leo followed, staying close to the dragon's side. The hallway was tight, made of old steel. Wires hung from the ceiling. Screens blinked with static. They entered a large room, round with a glass wall showing the inside of a stasis chamber. Inside it was another dragon, smaller, pale blue, sleeping in thick mist. This one, Drakkar said, lowering his voice, was the first. My sister. Leo moved closer to the glass. She's still alive. Barely, Drakkar said. She sleeps, waiting for command. But her link is broken. Leo checked the control panel. Most buttons were dead, but one screen still glowed. It showed old data, logs from Earth scientists. Subject bonded. Mental sync at 72%. Emotional stability confirmed. Dragonman test successful. Project expanding. Leo touched the screen. They made you feel, not just fight. Drakkar nodded. We were not machines. We were partners, friends. But when the war ended, they locked us here, buried us. Until the Valith found it, Leo said. Drakkar growled low. They turned the pit into a show. They fed us lives, thinking we were monsters. Leo clenched his fists. They wanted fear, not truth. Suddenly, the room shook. Sirens blared. Red lights flashed. Above them, the Valith must have noticed something was wrong. Maybe Leo's fall was too quiet. Maybe they sensed danger. Drakkar turned toward the shaking door. They are coming. Leo grabbed a nearby locker and pried it open. Inside was a black combat suit, human-made. His size. He smiled. Then we'll be ready. He pulled on the suit, light but strong. It locked onto his wrist device with a click. Drakkar bent low. Climb on. Leo stared. Are you sure? You lead, the dragon said. I follow. As Leo climbed onto Drakkar's back, the hallway shook again. Dust fell from the ceiling. Voices echoed above. Alien shouts. They were searching for him. But this time, he wasn't alone. This time, he had a dragon. Drakkar roared, and the pit trembled. The galaxy thought the dragon pit was a place of death. They were wrong. It was a place of rebirth. The sky darkened above him as the silhouette of the rescue ship appeared, cutting through the thick clouds. It was a sign that humanity wasn't alone, that Earth would fight back. As Ray was lifted into the air and carried aboard the rescue ship, he knew one thing for sure. Humanity had proven its worth, and the galaxy would never forget the strength of one human who fought for his life, for his planet, and for the future. Ray's eyes locked on the massive door, now trembling as the dragon's claws scraped against it from the other side. The beast's breath was hot and thick, filling the chamber with the smell of sulfur and death. Ray's heart hammered in his chest as he stood frozen for a moment, the enormity of the situation pressing down on him. He had disabled the self-destruct, but the dragon was still here. The creature that had stalked him, tormented him, and now it was on the verge of finishing what it started. Ray's hands tightened around his knife, the only weapon he had left. The pistol had long since jammed, and his strength was running low. But he couldn't give up. Not when the survival of his planet, the survival of humanity, depended on him. The loud scraping stopped. Then a low growl vibrated through the walls. Ray's breath caught in his throat. The dragon was waiting. It knew he was here. With a swift motion, Ray pulled his body into a crouch and scanned the room. The central core was still alive, its systems barely functioning. The monitors showed the countdown. A new one. 30 minutes until the facility would fully collapse. Earth would lose the chance to rescue him, and the dragon would have no reason to hold back. Ray quickly calculated his options. The dragon was too strong, too fast. The odds of him taking it down alone were impossible. But if he could get to the central power system, if he could overcharge the remaining energy reserves, he could create a blast powerful enough to take the creature out. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot he had. The door shook again as the dragon pressed its weight against it, the beast's roar deafening as it began to break through. Ray's time was running out. He grabbed the control panel, his hands shaking, and began typing in a series of codes. He had to set up the power surge, redirect it to the dragon's position. It was risky, but it might be his only chance. The screen flickered, and a loud crash echoed through the room. The dragon's enormous tail smashed through the wall, sending debris flying everywhere. Ray was thrown back as dust and shards of metal filled the air. He shielded his face, eyes stinging from the impact. The dragon's massive head appeared through the hole, its eyes glowing with malice. It roared, its teeth bared, and lunged forward. Ray barely had time to react. With adrenaline flooding his veins, Ray rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the dragon's snapping jaws. He scrambled to his feet, pulling himself up against the wall, his heart racing. There was no time to waste. He had to finish the power surge before the beast tore him apart. The dragon's massive wings flapped, sending gusts of wind and debris flying through the room. Ray ducked behind a large console, his body tense, ready to move at any second. The dragon's eyes followed him, but it was no longer a simple predator and prey chase. It was a battle of survival. Ray's fingers worked furiously on the terminal. He ignored the screams of his own exhaustion, focusing only on the task at hand. The energy grid was almost at full power, just a little more. 15 seconds. Ray glanced at the dragon. The creature was about to charge again. It was coming for him, but he had no choice. He had to make it count. With a final stroke, Ray entered the last command, and the entire facility hummed to life. The core began to glow, a dangerous surge of energy pulsing through the room. A bright blue light filled the chamber, lighting up the walls, the floor, and everything in between. The dragon hesitated for a split second, its senses detecting the rising power, but Ray knew what was coming. He ran. The dragon lunged, its jaws snapping just inches away from his back, but Ray didn't stop. He sprinted toward the exposed energy conduit, using every last ounce of strength to throw himself into the surge of power. The blast wasn't immediate. It would take a moment. And then, boom. The facility trembled as the core exploded with a force so powerful it shattered the walls, sending the dragon flying back. Its roar was deafening as it tried to recover, but it was too late. Ray collapsed to the ground, feeling the shockwave of the explosion vibrate through his body. The blast had weakened the dragon, and as the beast staggered to its feet, the remaining drones from earlier swarmed in for the kill. The dragon fought back, but the drone's powerful energy weapons proved too much. The creature faltered and fell to the ground with a deafening crash. It was over. Ray lay there, breathing heavily, his body battered and bruised. His mind was a haze of pain, but relief washed over him as he heard the faintest hum of a ship's engines in the distance. Earth's rescue team was coming. Ray could barely move, but he managed to smile through the pain. He had done it. Against all odds, he had survived. The rebel camp was hidden deep within the forest, surrounded by thick trees and rocks that made it nearly impossible to spot from the air. As Leo and Drakkar entered the camp, the mood was tense but curious. The rebels whispered among themselves, casting cautious glances at the dragon. Leo felt the weight of their eyes. He had survived a sacrifice, escaped a dragon pit, and now stood before them with a creature of legend by his side. "You don't have to stare," Leo said, his voice loud enough for the rebels to hear. "I'm just a soldier. And this dragon is just a weapon." The leader of the rebels, a tall woman with a scar across her cheek, stepped forward. "Not just any weapon," she said, her voice cold but full of admiration. "That dragon is a symbol. And you're something more." Leo shook his head. "I'm not anything special. I'm just a human. And we got a long fight ahead of us." The rebel leader's name was Kyra, and she led a faction known as the Starborn Resistance, a group of outcasts and rebels who fought against the oppressive Valith Empire. The Valith had destroyed countless worlds, and the rebellion had been their only hope for freedom. We've been waiting for a leader, Tyra said, eyeing Leo with a calculating gaze. But now we need something more than just a leader. We need hope. Drakkar moved closer to Leo, his massive wings casting a shadow over the rebels. We can be that hope, he growled. We are more than just survival. We are the power that comes when you refuse to kneel. Zyra's expression softened. She knew the Valeth were not easy to defeat, but with Leo and Drakkar by her side, something had shifted. Leo took a deep breath. We don't have much time. The Valeth will be searching for us. They know we escaped. We need to move before they send their full force. Nodded. We have a safe house not far from here. It's a weapons cache. We'll hide there and plan our next move. As they moved through the camp, Leo noticed the rebels were preparing. Soldiers were sharpening weapons. Engineers were checking their ships. But something felt off. There was an unease in the air. What's the plan? Leo asked as he walked beside Zyra. Zyra looked around, her eyes scanning the faces of her people. We've been hiding for too long. It's time to strike back. The Valeth are vulnerable right now, divided between their capital and their warships. If we can hit their supply lines, we'll cripple them. Leo nodded. Sounds like a plan. But before they could leave, an urgent message came through their communication device. Incoming. Valeth fleet detected. 5 ships, approaching from the east. Zyra's eyes hardened. I knew it. They found us. The rebels scrambled into action. Drakkar roared, flames licking his teeth. Leo stepped forward, his hand on the hilt of his energy blade. We need to hit them hard. If we don't, they'll destroy everything, Leo said, rallying the rebels. Zyra, what's our first move? We have a secret weapon, Zyra replied. She motioned to a nearby building. Follow me. Inside, they found a small army ship, the size of a fighter, but built for stealth and firepower. It was camouflaged and designed to take out high-priority targets. This is our ship, Leo asked, amazed. Zyra smiled. It's the only one of its kind. It's called the Starfire, and it can take out their fleet, but we need someone who knows how to fly it. Leo glanced at Drakkar. The dragon stretched his wings. I can help. Zyra raised an eyebrow. Can you pilot a ship? Not a problem, Drakkar said with a growl. Just point me in the right direction. The rebels loaded the ship with ammunition, and soon Leo, Zyra, and Drakkar were aboard the Starfire, preparing for their first strike against the Valeth. The ship launched from the camp, cutting through the atmosphere like a streak of light. Leo and Zyra stood at the controls, while Drakkar perched in the back, his wings tightly folded. His eyes glowed, sensing the incoming danger. Leo looked out the window. The Valeth fleet was getting closer. 5 massive warships, each bristling with weapons. This is it, Leo said, his voice tense. Stay focused. Zyra nodded. We hit them hard and fast. No hesitation. The first warship fired a massive plasma beam, but the Starfire juked left, narrowly dodging the blast. Drakkar let out a roar. The first ship is mine. He flung open the hatch, his claws shooting out. With a single swipe, he sliced through the warship's outer defenses. Leo's eyes widened. He's insane, but it's working. Zyra guided the ship closer to the remaining Valeth vessels. Prepare to fire.